What profession has become less impressive as you've gotten older? To be honest, most. Probably a perspective thing. As a kid, the whole world seemed so well put together by professionals who know what they're doing. As you begin to work these industries, you realize how many people learn as you go along, how the highest level experts make elementary mistakes, and how many industries are seemingly held together by glue and duct tape. Yes, that includes me, but if you want my best example, police. Growing up and seeing them on shows, you think there is a crack team of investigators and crime stoppers. As an adult, they seem largely interested in filling up paperwork and wishing you the best of luck. I get what you're saying. As a kid, you think adults have it all figured out. But then you start working and see it's often just trial and error. Everyone's just trying to make it work, including the police. You watch those crime shows, and it all looks so smooth. In reality, it's a lot of routine stuff and not as glamorous as it seems. Just part of growing up, I guess. When you grow up, you learn that the world is not a simple place and all jobs are filled with people. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, athletes, etc., all become less impressive when you take off the rose-colored glasses and recognize that all people are flawed and most are doing their best to help you and get through their day. Be kind to each other. Yeah, that makes sense. Everyone has their own struggles, and it's easy to forget that behind each job title is a person just trying to do their best. I remember a time when I had a rough day, and a stranger's small act of kindness completely changed my mood. It's a reminder that we should all just try to be nice to each other and recognize that we're all in this together. Journalist, and I say this as someone who works in the field. I approach my job today the same way I did 20 years ago, but back then people were intrigued, or even vaguely impressed. Today, I'm hesitant to even mention it. The contempt is palpable. It's interesting how perceptions change over time. A friend of mine used to be really proud of their job in journalism, always sharing stories. Now, they often skip that part in conversations. It's like the respect for the profession has shifted. People don't see it the same way anymore, and that must feel pretty disheartening after 2 decades of dedication. Journalist. With the decline of print journalism and proliferation of online content, there is just so much terrible journalism out there. There is no barrier to entry, anyone can post whatever garbage they want, and even actual established news outlets seem to be hiring people who have no clue what they're doing. Sure, there is still some good work being done, but is drowned in a sea shit. I get what you mean. A friend of mine tried to break into journalism recently. They had a lot of passion for it. But after a few months, they were frustrated by the quality of content out there. It's hard to stand out when everybody is throwing stuff online without care. They ended up stepping back a bit and focusing on projects that actually matter to them. Makes sense in this climate. Being a lawyer used to seem so prestigious and awe-inspiring when I was younger. But as I've gotten older and learned more about the daily grind and stress they go through, plus the high burnout rates, it doesn't seem as glamorous anymore. It's still a respectable job, but the shine has definitely worn off with a deeper understanding of what it entails. I used to think being a lawyer was the ultimate goal. A friend of mine went to law school, and at first, it sounded amazing. But after hearing about the long hours, stress, and constant pressure, it lost its charm. They still find fulfillment in it, but it's not what they imagined. It's just another job, like any other, but with a lot more weight on their shoulders. All of them, honestly. When you climb the ladder in any career, you see everyone is just a human hidden behind a title. There's often nothing even remotely remarkable about your heroes. They have broken marriages, children who hate them, bad habits, and everything else you can imagine, like the rest of us schmucks. The people I envy the most are those who are happy with next to nothing, living a simple life with a happy family. Cherish what you have now, not what you might have in 10 years. I get that. It's easy to put people on pedestals, thinking they've got it all figured out. But in reality, everyone has their struggles. Those content with a simple life often have more peace than those chasing titles. It's a reminder to appreciate what we have now instead of getting caught up in future goals. Sometimes happiness is just about being present and valuing everyday moments with the people we care about. Building inspectors. As a commercial contractor with over 20 years' experience and licensed in 6 different states, I literally have guys who sat through an 8-hour inspector course tell me that my plumbing HVAC electrical lines aren't installed correctly because they go around rim joists, floor joists, other structural elements, etc. instead of through them. They will literally force me to cut through main structural supports of multi-story buildings so that installations look like the picture in the books that they were taught from. 20 years ago these guys had common sense. Nowadays they have a badge. I still can't believe they wear this on full display like a police officer, and false sense of experience and knowledge. Edit, I am a reputable builder with an engineering degree. I refuse to do anything to hurt the structural integrity of anything I build. These guys do not know what they're doing. When they request a structural member be cut that I know is unsafe, I push back hard. If it's not a major structural issue, I usually let them know and then go with what they decide. Either way, my point is we really need to start trusting the guys licensed to build. If you want inspectors to call the shots, then make them get the experience and licenses as well. ###. It's wild how things change over time. I know a contractor who's been around forever. He often deals with younger inspectors who seem to lack real-world experience. They stick to the textbook rules and don't seem to understand what actually matters in construction. My friend really pushes back when they try to make him compromise on safety. He just wants to build things right, but it gets tough when inexperienced folks have the authority. A great many of them. The weird thing, many also get a lot of respect too. I'm a private pilot and an Air Force officer. Knowing firsthand just how hard it is to fly gets more respect. On the other hand, I am thoroughly convinced most pilots are autistic. It's interesting how people perceive pilots. Flying is tough, and there's a lot of skill involved, so it's not surprising they get respect. But the idea that many pilots might be on the spectrum is thought-provoking. Maybe it comes from the intense focus and precision flying demands. It's definitely a unique perspective, and it probably says something about how we view different skills in society. Doctors, but not because I value their knowledge and experience less. It is because so many of them seem disillusioned and burned out by the business of the US healthcare field. As a kid, the profession seemed 100% about helping folks, curing them, maybe losing a few tough ones. Like Hawkeye Persin MASH maybe. As I have gotten older and spoken with doctors, I realize that it seems so much more fighting the insurance companies for patients to get paid, filling out and signing 10,000 forms, fighting lawsuits from people who want a quick payout for being sick and or blaming you for not curing them, not prescribing them opiates, constantly questioned by the people you are trying to help, a large subset of whom are internet social media trend believers and WebMD aficionados. Yeah, definitely less impressed by getting a holistic view of the profession. I get it. It's tough when you see what people go through in the medical field. I had a friend who went into medicine thinking it'd be fulfilling. After a couple of years, he was just overwhelmed by the system. He used to tell me stories about chasing insurance claims instead of caring for patients. It's a shame when the passion for helping gets buried under paperwork and drama. Just seems like a grind now. Blue-collar work in general. Every blue-collar worker I know works way more than they should for their pay, and they destroy their bodies by the time they're 30, but due to finances, they don't get to retire, ever. It's really unfortunate how many of my friends I'm watching burn the candle at both ends, and they genuinely have no choice because of the cost of living. It's tough to see friends go through that. They work hard, often more than their bodies can handle, just to make ends meet. I've seen many push through long hours, sacrificing their health for wages that barely cover bills. The system doesn't really seem to support them, and it feels like their dreams of a decent retirement vanish. It's a reality check for a lot of people just trying to survive. Teacher. When you ask a room full of kindergarten kids what they want to be when they grow up, many would say teacher. But as you get older, you realize it's really a thankless, unglamorous job. Some teachers are amazing, but there are also others that don't care about the kids, don't really know that much about their subject, and just want the holidays. I remember when we had a teacher who was really into their subject. Made learning fun and engaging. But then there were others who just showed up and read from the textbook. It made us realize how important a good teacher is. It affects how we learn and feel about school. It's a tough job, but those who really care make a big difference. Maybe it's not a profession, but grad school students. I went to a grad school with a hope that all the people around me would be nerds who loves the field, but in reality, 85% of them were there only to get the degree and extended OPT period. Yeah, I've seen that too. People often chase degrees for practical reasons, not really for the passion. It's kind of disappointing when you expect an environment full of enthusiasm, but it's mostly just about getting through it. I guess it happens in a lot of programs. Some of my friends were like that, just looking at the next step rather than enjoying the learning experience. Medical doctor. After being a woman who had a complex condition and I kept getting told it was anxiety, I realized a lot of them aren't as bright as you'd think. Edit, looks like we struck a nerve with some people's egos. LOL. Thanks for the award, and also, I hope everyone that responded gets a diagnosis. You deserve to be treated like a human being. Blackheart hash. I had a friend who went through something similar. She kept visiting doctors, getting dismissed with vague reasons. It took a while, but she finally found someone who listened and figured it out. It's frustrating how often people overlook real issues. It's good that more folks are starting to advocate for themselves. Everyone deserves proper care and respect, no matter what. As a former scientist myself, scientists. In media, scientists are often depicted as brilliant truth seekers who save the world through pure facts. But in reality, most scientists aren't like that. The majority of papers are written by PhD students aiming for their degree, and publications are judged by metrics like impact and novelty, not the quality of the science itself. This system leads to problems. Negative results are rarely published. Papers often oversell findings to sound more important, and researchers tend to stick to established methods to avoid ruffling feathers. It's also worth noting that a PhD doesn't always mean someone is exceptionally smart. It's more about persistence, frustration tolerance, and self-motivation. Of course, there are brilliant scientists who don't fit this mold, but they're the exception, not the rule. I had a friend in grad school who was super dedicated. He'd spend countless hours in the lab, chasing results. Most of his work ended up in a drawer because it wasn't groundbreaking enough. He'd joke that persistence was his secret weapon. It was eye-opening to see how much effort goes unnoticed. In the end, he got his PhD, but I think he learned more about the system than science itself. Hospitals and clinics. I'm amazed at the amount of PPL who can make it through med school but can't manage very basic tasks. Makes me curious at how their brain works. More BC. I am a street smart person. Some book smart credentials. I'm always shocked by book smart PPL who pick up zero life skills. I get that. I've seen friends who excel in studies but struggle with everyday stuff. Like one who could ace exams but couldn't cook a simple meal. It's interesting how some people focus so much on academics that they skip learning basic life skills. I guess it shows that being street smart and book smart are two different things. Balancing both can really help in day-to-day life. Physicians. They are so restricted by insurance companies that they all seem to only be able to follow a script. They also now almost entirely rely on technology. When I was young, a doctor would look at your nails and hands and feet and be able to see many problems right off. It's true that medicine has changed a lot. Back in the day, it felt more personal. A doctor would know a lot just by examining you without all the tech. Now it seems like the focus is on data and protocols. I guess they have to work within certain limits, but it sometimes feels like that human touch is missing. It makes you wonder if we're losing something important in healthcare. My parents' next-door neighbor was a very successful litigator and mentioned to me that lots of judges are just mediocre lawyers because the most eligible attorneys aren't interested in a pay cut. About 10 years later he became a judge, anyways. That's an interesting perspective. It's funny how the system works, right? People talk about judges like they're the top tier, but it seems like many end up there just for the stability. Your neighbor probably had the right skills, but just wasn't willing to make that sacrifice until later. It's a reminder that success doesn't always follow a straight path. Life's pretty unpredictable like that. Fun fact. Was dealing with litigation for a family issue. Court appearances that didn't need either one of the parties to appear in court. Post-pandemic it was all call-in-court appearances. Something wasn't adding up. Not flowing. I requested transcripts of 2 recent hearings, and was shocked at how uninformed my and the opposing attorney was. At one hearing the opposing attorney didn't even know the names of the family members they were representing. My attorney had to ask the judge if he could help them out with why and who they were there for. It now made sense as to why the hearings kept having continuations. The attorneys couldn't fully answer what they should have known and was being asked about by the judge, so continuation until they could report back with the info needed. That sounds frustrating. It's surprising to see how unprepared some attorneys can be, especially in family matters. Those hearings dragging on must have felt like a waste of time. When lawyers don't even know the basics, you have to wonder how well they're representing their clients. Good on you for digging into the transcripts. At least now you know what's behind the delays. It's a reminder that you have to advocate for yourself sometimes. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.